So today we just got the official Noob Saibot gameplay trailer, and we're just gonna go through it, see what we can see, break down what is coming with Chaos Reigns, what's coming with Noob Saibot, and probably the combat cast for Noob Saibot. And as always, whenever I review stuff, I will link it in the description so you can go ahead and watch it yourself. We're not going to watch the entire thing. We are just going to watch the gameplay sections, of which there are three. And man, does Noob Saibot have an install state, tons of launchers, and we do see a couple nerfs, a couple of changes. So let's just get right into this, starting with the first gameplay section.
Havoc filled my mind with his chaos. I have learned his thoughts, learned his combat.
Already, there's a lot that's happening here in this first bit of gameplay. He has this full string, we actually saw it in the teaser, and it puts your opponent at full screen, and he is so plus off it, he gets to set up this projectile, and we were right to assume that this green stuff is like a Street Fighter 6 M Bison bomb setup, where he can detonate it at any time, and as we saw, and we're going to see later, he can actually enhance that projectile to instantly detonate it, or to set up a shadow that will shoot the projectile itself, which is really interesting. Unfortunately, we don't get to see how it reacts to someone blocking. And right here we see the shadow tackle. I'm sure that you can detonate that in this moment, but they just chose not to in this trailer and get like a full screen launch if someone doesn't block a shadow tackle. And right here, see the string, that could be a mid string, like a very fast but stubby, well, relatively stubby mid that goes into a low that you can 50-50, and then he special cancels that into the explosion, goes into air string that we saw in the teaser, that's a ground bounce, and then he goes into this high-low, what looks to be a high-low, so you can 50-50 off that with certain cameos, I'm sure. And then his throw is really crazy. One, it's super long, so this is like a great timer scam throw if it's gonna get your opponent to just be lower health than you because of how long it lasts. And on top of that, it puts your opponent airborne and the shadow throws the opponent back into you. So you can definitely, pick like Cyrax or like Jax even and time it to where when the shadow throws your opponent back to you, Jax can come in and grab him with his ambush and you get a full combo off of your throw. So his throw seems to be very good in that you're going to be able to combo with it. So in the second bit of gameplay here, we actually get to see a lot more. So we were right to assume that this string is a low overhead string, because in the teaser trailer, he does a low ender, and he does use that low ender later in the gameplay trailer, where it puts your opponent in a stumble state, and he can get a launcher with a shadow tackle after if he special cancels. But here, it's just a overhead launcher, and he does not special cancel into his classic down-up teleport here. As you can see, he doesn't interrupt the animation. He just actually goes back into his stance and does the teleport. And then, so that just means a couple things. He's going to be very plus afterwards to where he can either set up a projectile to get that bomb set up inside his opponent. He could do teleport for damage. He can enhance the teleport to go ahead and get a launcher. Maybe he can do regular portal as well. And if it's an unblockable like it used to be, that would just be a guaranteed launcher, I'd assume. Or you could use a cameo like Motaro or Kung Lao to teleport you to the other side while they're being launched to the other side. And you're going to be able to just get a natural combo that way without having to use any of your specials or meter, and instead just use a bar of cameo. Then he goes into this like 4-4 that's like a high overhead, and it goes into this little launcher, and again, with like Janet Cage or Movado, you're going to be able to use cameo there and get a full combo. And then we see this string, there it is, that's the low ender, stumble state, and we see our Shujinko buff, and that Shujinko doesn't even need to have a move stolen to get a combo now. He actually crumple states your opponents just from his regular mid-mid. And after this crumple state, he uses the portal to get a launch off of it, which is pretty cool. And he goes into this to this pretty long air string. It's a 4-hit air string that he can special cancel, and we'll see it again later in the trailer. But here he does the enhanced teleport, which is a launcher, and it puts them in an airborne state afterwards, and he goes for his shadow kick that actually puts your opponent very far away from you. And I'm gonna have to assume that it's plus enough to where you can set up another projectile and keep pressuring. So Noob Saibot is gonna be way more of a setup character in this game than he has been previously.
The blood spilled today will be yours, not mine.
There, we get to see his fatal blow, or at least the animation, not the startup. We also get to see some other enhanced specials. So this string here, we saw it earlier where he does the flips and it launches. And of course, like we said, Movado, Janet Cage, any other cameo can turn it into a full combo. Then he does an air to air, or a air string, I meant to say, excuse me, the one we saw earlier, the 4-hit. But the enhanced shadow drop kick will actually spin state your opponent, kind of like Darius does. And it's another combo extender, which is just even more combo extenders. And he has this big overhead that seems to be a great ender that puts your opponent again around full screen so you can set up another projectile. And we see the enhanced version of his projectile at the startup where the shadow charges it for you. Right here, we're going to see him do this low, mid, I'm assuming. And then I guess Noob Saibot can probably delay this for as long as he wants and release it whenever. So even if Tanya were to block this sequence, I definitely assume that Noob Saibot is going to have some nasty setups where he'll just set this up. If you get hit, he shoots you with this, and he gets to blow you up and get a full combo. If you block, he's got dual string, and then he's going to shoot you, get plus frames, and gets to keep pressure. And we see him detonate that, and that launches you so far up in the air. Here we see the air string that we saw in the teaser, where it's a ground bounce. Then he goes into another enhanced shadow kick. I'm assuming this is the upward one, and it's a launcher as well. And then right here, he ends it with the sweep. Again, super long sweep animation, kind of like Omni-Man's. You can use Tremor, Sector, or Frost, or any other OTG cameo to interrupt this animation and, continue the combo from there. So lots of launchers, lots of relaunches, lots of like spin states, just keeping your opponent in the air. We actually get to see a Tanya nerf before her enhanced down back 4 and, down back 4 in general would hit 3 times no matter what, and she could chip you out with it. Now, if it's blocked, she only hits you 1 time, so Tanya players can no longer just do down back 4 and, chip you out, or God forbid you're crouching, so she actually spins over you and goes to the other side of the screen and you can't punish her. And here is that same string we saw earlier, where it ends in the low instead of the overhead, and you can special cancel that into fatal blow, and it seems to combo. And there's not really much to say about the fatal blow because we don't see the startup of it, but I will say it is a pretty cool fatal, definitely reminiscent of his X-Ray from MK9. Alright, so this entire sequence is insane because Noob Saibot has an install that lets him do all these launchers and moves because this whole combo he does is entirely meterless, and he's got this like green and black aura around him. So this string, I'm assuming, is tied to this install because this low ender, it goes like low, mid, low, and it's a launcher. So again, more 50-50 potential. That's very scary because he can launch you with that low. And he goes into that 4-4 we saw. And the ending kick here is also a launcher. It's a relaunch. Then he goes into another portal that also relaunches. and he does a like stand 4, I'm assuming, into the teleport, and that's how he ends it. Now, obviously, we don't know the damage of that. It could be very high, it could be very low. I'm assuming that Noob Saibot, because he has so many launchers, he's gonna be like Ermac, where he's gonna be low damage but have a million ways to open you up, or he's gonna be a low health character. And those are the two ways I see it. But this is just really cool because he hasn't a true install like we thought Ermac was gonna have. But this actually does give him new moves and more launchers, makes him much scarier when he's pressuring you. And obviously, he can still do setups with his. Well, I'm gonna assume he still has access to all of his other things like the projectile setup with the shadow, and then of course he goes into a fatality here. I'm gonna let you guys watch that on your own because that's gonna be it for this video. I don't really want to have it drag on for too long. So that's going to be it for the Noob Saibot gameplay trailer. And some final thoughts here. Noob Saibot is going to have some crazy mix up. He's going to hit like a truck, not because he's going to do a lot of damage himself, I'm assuming. I think he's going to be like Ermac where he doesn't do a lot of damage, but because he has so many ways to open people up, it's going to feel like he hits like a truck, and really maybe he's only doing like 30% per combo. But that in of itself isn't a bad thing because he has so many launchers. Basically, every string is gonna lead into a full combo, at least from what we can see. And on top of that, he's got a great throw that can definitely be comboed with some other characters and some other cameos. He already has built-in 50-50 with that string that goes into overhead low. He's gonna have a crazy zoning game and anti-zoning game with his shadow tackle, his teleport, and setting up that projectile. That projectile seems to be the linchpin of his game plan, at least to me, where you always want to have that bomb ready on your opponent so you can detonate it at any time. And maybe if they're blocking, it gives you tons of plus frames after a string, so you can go ahead and keep pressuring afterwards. But this seems even better to me, setting up the shadow to do the projectile, because if your opponent gets hit, you can detonate that after the shadow shoots them and get a combo that way. But if your opponent blocks, you can just have the shadow shoot them, get more plus frames, keep pressuring, maybe even set up another shadow projectile. So he's going to have a lot of really cool setup. I think this is the coolest he's been since MK9. I wasn't too big a fan of him in MK11. So I think in MK9 was the best, but now this to me looks like the best. He has a true install state, which is really cool. And yeah, Noob Saibot looks great. We got to see some nerfs and some buffs as well. Tanya, her armored move is nerfed and only hits once on block. And Shujinko doesn't even need to steal a move anymore to combo with. He crumple states people now. So yeah, that's going to be it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching.